One of the things that was most enraging about both the oral argument and the ruling by Chief Justice Roberts in the immunity case was they kept saying, whatever the facts are here.
Yes.
Like, we don't need to engage with what actually happened here. This is just high-minded constitutional thinking that we're doing here. We don't need to get into the specifics of what actually happened. Well, yeah, you do, because your ridiculous immunity ruling makes us have to parse every individual action to decide whether it's capital O official or lowercase o official or not official at all in this bizarre system that you made up. But that means we need to go through the facts of every single one of these things. And here's the factual record. And him saying, so what, when he was confronted with the physical peril that he had put his vice president in. Here's him saying the details don't matter when he's told by his own legal counsel that what he is proposing is illegal and will not stand up in court. I mean, the factual record here is for the public, but it's also to, I think, ultimately embarrass those justices if they want to keep this charade going through another round of appeals.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
It's been a week to forget for the man who can't remember the name of his own doctor, confuses Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley, and conflates Alaska and Afghanistan.
I weighed it. It's true.
As U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkin unsealed a new filing in Special Counsel Jack Smith's election interference case against Donald Trump, the case that includes allegations about January 6th.
Well, the Vice President of the United States was taking notes. Donald Trump always hated seeing people take notes in the White House when he was speaking. But taking notes was the least of Donald Trump's problems with Mike Pence during a meeting in which the President of the United States was trying to get the Vice President of the United States to join what Jack Smith calls a criminal conspiracy and commit a crime against the United States of America, a crime that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith in a 165-page motion today calls a conspiracy against the rights of millions of Americans to vote and have their votes counted. It was January 4th, 2021. The discussion was one of several described in Jack Smith's filing today, in which Donald Trump tried to get Mike Pence to throw out the Electoral College results of the votes cast by every voter in America. This is about every vote cast in that election. Throwing out the results of 7 states would mean not just that the votes in those states didn't matter, but that no votes in any states mattered in deciding who the next president would be. It meant that your vote would not matter.
And as expected, Trump went into a complete meltdown over the matter, and things didn't get any better for him when Fox News host Neil Cavuto reported on it, rather bluntly, should I say.
In on a busy news day, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. Prosecutors right now are offering a redacted version of Special Counsel Jack Smith's filing. That had to be made public today. It was in this newly unsealed court paper. We're learning that former President Trump resorted to crimes in a bid to cling to power after the 2020 election. We don't know much more than that. A lot of this stuff was going to be coming out anyway. We're going to be getting the latest on that and a legal to look at what is being revealed here. And whether it's giving us any information on anything we don't know. The timing of this, of course, a little more than about 5 weeks before the general election. We're on top of that, give you the latest on this. In the meantime, then there's this.
Before, Rachel Maddow outlined just why she believes this is the worst possible news for Donald Trump at this stage in his campaign. She went on to explain how the intention behind this document, which was filed by Jack Smith's team last week, was to show Judge Chutkin that the immunity ruling from the Supreme Court didn't sink the government's case. And there was plenty to pull from here.
The argument that the Trump team will make is that this is an effort to interfere with the election. But the extraordinary thing is that this case went before the Supreme Court. Yeah. The Supreme Court had to weigh in. They said that Trump has partial immunity. They tasked the trial judge with reviewing what should remain in this case, both the charges and the evidence. And that's why we have this filing. But it was a choice by the judge to make this public, again, about a month before the election.
So I referred earlier to what is, I've now been schooled by somebody at the Justice Department. It's the 60-day rule. About the Justice Department not releasing anything new 60 days before an election. But I am reminded it's related to new charges or overt investigative actions by the Justice Department. And this is not that, because this is the special counsel, which is kind of somewhat independent and also responding to the Supreme Court and responding to Judge Chutkan, and that is not in the hands of Attorney General Garland.
This is a case that was brought last year as well, and obviously part of the reason why we're here is because Donald Trump successfully tried to make sure that this was delayed as much and as long as possible.
Right, they wanted to do this in January.
They wanted to do this a long, long time ago.
Not October.
And here we are in October, in part because Donald Trump was that successful in delaying things. And one of the things that really comes through here is, you can see not only those communications that you referred to with Mike Pence, right? And you can also see references to Chief of Staff, who we can assume is Mark Meadows, since he was the Chief of Staff.
Right.
He's redacted in this document, Jake. But what you see through here is repeatedly an effort by the special counsel to reinforce the idea that this was private conduct, that even if you're going to rely, and it appears they're going to try to rely on some of this evidence from Mike Pence, again, somebody, the vice president, his chief of staff, which the Supreme Court said, you got to really stay away from anything that is part of Donald Trump's official function. But what they're doing here is trying to reframe all of this conduct as not official conduct.
In the wake of the release, the level of specificity arguing that Trump was not carrying out these acts as president of the United States, but was instead taking these actions as somebody who was trying to win a next term as president, was pretty much laid bare and damning, by the way. Full of glaring admissions and quotable lines like, quote, "The executive branch has no authority or function to choose the next president." And as the filing contends, the extent to which Trump was trying to effect that choice was as a candidate, not as president. And while the Trump camp is whining that this is election interference, it's also worth noting that the filing was released less than 24 hours after Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, rolled out some of the most pathetic revisionist history about what the former president did on January 6th and what happened at the end of the 2020 election.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
And bigger picture, Julie, there was also a key moment on health care.
Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill.
So if you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who now depend, Julie, on Obamacare for your health care, what do you hear there?
Well, you hear that you're going to be able to keep it. You hear that you're not going to be tossed off of your insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. It means that if you're a woman, you're not going to be paying more for your health care than a man. It means that when you go for your annual checkup, you're not going to get a bill for it the way you did before Obamacare.
Does J.D. Vance say what he said, thinking that it would, because it is provably untrue, as Tim Walz pointed out, right? So why do you say it?
Because it's a fire hose of lies. Because J.D. Vance lied time and time and time again. Let's call this for what it is. I mean, everybody's being very nice about that. He was saying that he was slick. He was, erudite. No, he lied. He lied and he lied and he lied. And he got upset about it when the moderators, for one small instance, fact-checked him. Well, he should be fact-checked again. And frankly, I'm surprised that Governor Walz didn't fact-check him much more. But the reality is that Donald Trump did everything he could to overturn Obamacare. The only reason it's here today is because John McCain, is one of the last acts of his life, decided to save it.
Julie Radinsky, Rena Shaw, great talking to you both. Thank you.
Which was echoed again by the former president during his rally in Michigan, a far cry from his most recent admissions that he lost by a whisker.
Getting ready to do it, and then a lot of bad things happened. We did much better, by the way, in the election of 2020 than we did in 2016. Just remember that. Millions and millions of votes more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country. But they beat us by a whisker. They beat us just by a little whisker. He beat us from the basement.
Maybe he got wind that it could be used against him in court, and he's went back to being full-on QAnon Karen instead.
Why didn't you answer the question last night during the debate about who won the 2020 presidential election?
Well, look, here's the simple reason. The media is obsessed with talking about the election of 4 years ago. I'm focused on the election of 33 days from now because I want to throw Kamala Harris out of office.
You know, last election, we did great in 2016. A lot of people don't know we did much better in 2020. We won. We did win. It was a rigged election. You have to tell Kamala Harris, that's why I'm doing it again. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again. You know where I'd be right now? On the beaches of Monte Carlo, maybe, or someplace.
But as Maddow points out, Smith's filing shows the American people that Vance's revisionist history is nonsense. And should the court move forward on the basis of this filing and say that Trump is not immune and should be prosecuted, it shows the criminal case against Trump is very strong and pretty detailed. So no wonder he's scared.
One of the things that was most enraging about both the oral argument and the ruling by Chief Justice Roberts in the immunity case was they kept saying, whatever the facts are here.
Yes.
Like, we don't need to engage with what actually happened here. This is just high-minded constitutional thinking that we're doing here. We don't need to get into the specifics of what actually happened. Well, yeah, you do, because your ridiculous immunity ruling makes us have to parse every individual action to decide whether it's capital O official or lowercase o official or not official at all in this bizarre system that you made up. But that means we need to go through the facts of every single one of these things. And here's the factual record. And him saying, so what, when he was confronted with the physical peril that he had put his vice president in. Here's him saying the details don't matter when he's told by his own legal counsel that what he is proposing is illegal and will not stand up in court. I mean, the factual record here is for the public, but it's also to, I think, ultimately embarrass those justices if they want to keep this charade going through another round of appeals.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.